Good evening. On behalf of the commissioners and staff, I would like to welcome you to the January 23rd, 2024 City of Roseville Public Utilities Commission meeting. This 7-member commission is responsible for studying and advising the City Council regarding all utilities owned or operated by the city, including electric, water, wastewater, and solid waste. The Public Utilities Commission advises the City Council regarding planning, rates, public information, cable television franchises, and other matters relating to such enterprises, and may also hear citizen complaints as to operational rates. The Public Utilities Commission also advises the City Council regarding the activities of such joint powers agencies as the city may be a member of or which relate to such utility enterprises. At this time, I would like to ask everyone to please put your electronic devices on silent. Kara, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bielski?
Here.
Commissioner DeLacy?
Here.
Commissioner DeMarkey?
Here.
Commissioner Knox? Commissioner Maish?
Here.
Commissioner Springer?
Here.
Chair Webb?
Here. Commissioner, sorry. Maish, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is public comments. This item is for anyone who would like to address the commission on any item that's not on tonight's agenda. When addressing the commission, please state your first and last name for the record. Not seeing any public comment, I'd like to request approval of the minutes. Item 5.1 is the approval of the November 28th, 2023 meeting minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Tonight we start with our requests and presentations. Our next item on our agenda is presentation of the Roseville Electric Utility Monthly Update. This report is by Chief Executive Officer Dan Beans, summarizing the monthly status of electric utility activities for information.
Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, Chair Webb and Commissioners. So probably tonight, the one thing you'd like to hear about is our rate outreach, which we've been working on for the last few weeks. So far, we have actually hosted our first of 3 public workshops for our proposed rate increases. We had 13 attendees. It was a virtual meeting. That was on January 4th. We have 2 additional workshops. The first is also virtual this Thursday, the 25th, and the second is in person on February 8th. We also presented at the Arcona monthly meeting last week and have been engaging with our key account customers as well. So we'll be giving a short presentation at the Chamber's Economic Development and Government Affairs meeting on Friday. And then if you need more information about our workshop dates and the rate proposal in general, you can go to roseville.ca.us/rates. Do you have any questions on the rates, our outreach?
How's it been going?
As expected. Nobody wants to pay more rates, but when you look at, it's funny because some of the articles are talking about PG&E and what their rates are, and our rates are still half or better. So and our reliability is like tenfold. So it is what it is. The causes of the rate increase, or majority of it, is power supply, which is a big portion of our budget, and with the current state regulations and federal positions on various subjects, it does create market issues. So, any other questions?
Okay, any questions from the folks here?
So, I have a question. The SMUD electric project in Placer County is getting a lot of press around my house anyway. I was wondering, and they've said that Roseville will benefit, and so I'm curious how Roseville's going to benefit from the SMUD project.
Well, we have our IRP, Integrated Resource Plan, which is approved by council, and we presented it to you as well in December. So in that plan, it does show us needing more renewable energy to meet our state mandates. And so solar and wind will both be probably part of that, along with other resources. So in the event that if that project goes forward and if Roseville is able to be an off-taker of that project, then that would benefit Roseville as far as energy.
So we're planning on participating in the upfront capital costs of that?
No, I didn't say that. So I'm just saying if we did participate and that came up as a project that met our goals and met our pricing requirements and all that, then theoretically it could benefit. At this point, we're still watching it and seeing how it's going, but we haven't made any commitments.
So their statements that Roseville's going to benefit at this point are a slight exaggeration or a little ahead of the curve?
Yeah, as far as Roseville Electric, we haven't committed to anything yet, but we are looking and we're in the market eventually for solar. And the nice thing, having a solar project closer to home avoids transmission risk in the future. Transmission is always going up in California, so if you have it close by, it's great. The other benefit with SMUD is we are both in the same balancing area, which means we avoid all of the other California ISO tax charges and all that. So it theoretically is a good project. We just haven't made that commitment yet.
Thank you.
But if you use solar panels, it would take a tremendous amount of real estate we just don't have to support any appreciable load.
Definitely a trade-off. Solar is not energy dense. Small modular reactors are, so are many other things. But California has a lot of rules. Hence,
Yes.
rates in California are going up everywhere. So I have a couple more items, unless you have more questions on rates. So, in 2025, in the spring, we're going to host the annual National American Public Power Association Line Workers Rodeo. So we had a meeting today at the grounds with Placer Valley Tourism and the grounds employees and electric and the representatives from APPA and other utilities that are part of that committee. Great meeting. They loved our facilities at the grounds. They're very excited. Everybody's excited. So we're going full steam ahead. Looking forward to 2025. So that'll be a huge event. Bring a lot of people into Roseville, eating and spending nights in hotels and shopping and all that. So on the transformer front, so
Ask about that.
in August, we were about to send notices to the Building Industry Association that we were getting close to 0 transformers available, like we were down to the last handful. We still had some for our existing customers because we have to make sure we can restore power after a problem. But before we got to 0, we started getting a few in, and as of today, we have over 80 transformers available. Yeah, so that translates to over 800 homes that we can support. So 50 of those came from South Korea, which we've never had to do before. I personally think we should be domestically supplying our critical grid components, but in a pinch to keep things moving, at least we got those. So we're keeping it going so far. There's also, on the transformer front, another bill has been introduced, this time by Senator Cruz and another gentleman, and so we're starting to be heard. We've been in D.C. many times. We've been making a fuss. We've been passing out flyers. We've been, crying, complaining to anybody who'll listen. We just did an article in the SAC Biz Journal on supply chain. And so they are starting to pay attention. They're realizing the Department of Energy is not really helping us. They're actually creating more problems. And so they're trying to get legislation to force DOE's hand and limit what they can do on energy efficiency of transformers. When we're going from 98.7 to 99.1%, it's getting ridiculous, and the cost is not, doesn't make sense. So anyway, so we are getting some people are starting to hear us, legislators, and so hopefully we start to get some actual help in that way. And the final item, unless you had questions on supply chain, in April, our crews are going to go out to the Light Up Navajo project again, and for training, and I'm pretty sure SMUD will probably be there as well. And this is an amazing program where our line workers get to go out there and hook American citizens up with power, and once they have the power, they can actually usually get water as well. First time ever in their lives, they've never had water or power, and so it's a very, very good cause. It's really good for our crews, and so we're very excited to participate again this year. And I'll take any other questions on any other subject.
Do any commissioners have questions for staff at this time? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Not seeing any public questions. I want to say thank you so much for your update, Dan.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have the Roseville Electric Power Supply Market Overview. This report is given to us by our Electric Assistant Director, William Forsyth, and he'll be summarizing the wholesale California electricity markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Webb and fellow commissioners. Thank you for the introduction. If we can go to the first slide. The next one after that. So I'm going to give you an overview tonight of the two basic electricity markets in California and the Western United States. We have centralized markets and bilateral markets. So centralized markets are represented by a single clearinghouse where load is buying and generation is selling. It's managed by a central market operator. The one you'd be familiar with is the California ISO. That is the big centralized market in the West. So the market operator determines the economic dispatch of the generating resources. So to put this dispatch together, the market operator takes bids, and you get increasing levels of cost of generators. And when there's enough generation to meet the forecasted load, the market meets, and you get what's known as the market clearing price. So the market clearing price then selects which actual generators are going to run and what hours they're going to run, and the price they're going to get paid, and hence the price that load's going to be paid. Centralized markets like this are governed by a tremendous amount of rules, regulations, a tariff, business practice manuals. The California ISO has business practice manuals that probably are about 2 to 3 feet tall, printing those out double-sided. So it's a very organized market. Contrast that with bilateral markets. In a bilateral market, it's individual utilities, individual participants, generators, just buying and selling electricity between two parties, mutually agreeing on the terms. These trades happen, some of them happen through centralized or platforms, instant messaging, email, or the parties just get on the phone, do the deal on a recorded line. And those trades then are facilitated by using standard agreements. For the city of Roseville, we use an instrument called the WSPP. So it's about a 200-page master agreement that us and about everybody in the West has signed on to. So with that master agreement, we can make a bilateral trade that might even be on like a single sheet of paper. We could trade millions of dollars worth of electricity or a few hundreds of dollars of electricity, more or less on a single sheet of paper, leveraging that master agreement. So that enables transactions in a bilateral market to happen pretty quick. And then once the trades are completed, the seller is dispatching the electricity, possibly getting transmission to deliver to whoever they sold it to. So the actual products that are traded come in many forms. So there's energy, electricity, So the electricity is produced and delivered. It may have certain hours. So there's standard products that are bought and sold, on-peak products, off-peak products. There's ancillary services. So these are operating or contingency reserves that are sold off of generation. Then there's resource adequacy. So this is the capacity of a generator. When you're buying resource adequacy, what you're really buying is the right for a particular generator to serve your load, typically in extreme conditions or stressed conditions. So it's your guarantee that you're going to have generation delivered to you. So the time periods that bilateral markets trade in, so there's month-ahead trades, and on a month-ahead basis, you might be buying the next month, you might be buying certain hours, subset of hours, you might be buying a few months or a few quarters ahead. There's day-ahead trading, so that's happening today, trading for tomorrow. Once again, particular hours, standard products, on-peak, off-peak. And it can be hour ahead, buying literally for the next hour to meet maybe some little deficiency, or maybe even selling to one of our neighbors that might have a deficiency and we have a little surplus. And then within the hour, there's real-time trading to kind of fine-tune the schedule. So a significant development that's been underway in the West is this move to more centralized markets. So the general trend of these centralized markets is just really to promote greater efficiency. When you're trading bilaterally, you're not incorporating the knowledge of that wider grid. So you may have something and the person you're talking to may not need it, but there may be some other utility farther away that might need it, but unless you guys are communicating with each other, you're not going to get it. So this greater efficiency will better utilize more inexpensive resources to serve load. It's also going to increase access to renewables and a greater ability to trade and deliver products over a much larger region. In a very regional centralized market, it would enable Roseville to trade with people that we may not have transmission that connects the two of us to. And overall, it's going to promote system reliability and emergency response. The graphic that's up there, that's a graphic that the California ISO put out about 6 months ago. As the California ISO is looking at, they're proposing a much more centralized market, and I've got another slide that will go into that. But you can kind of see the effect. The dark blue bubbles, those are parties that have expressed initial interest in joining that market. And so the ISO has done some studies to indicate the benefits if those dark blue entities were to join. And the big takeaway there is when California is over-generating renewables such as solar, you'll see that ship east and north. And the other thing you'll see is those light blue or teal. You'll see California being fed by a lot of out-of-state, typically thermal resources to help keep the lights on. So you see a much more efficient utilization of the renewables that California's invested in, but also California getting the benefit of reliable, dispatchable generation other states have. Yeah.
Does this mean that the Cal ISO is recognizing the benefit of natural gas generation? I mean, don't we have a policy in California trying to eliminate all the natural gas generation?
This is their slide. And I think, speaking more broadly, I know some of us were at an event hosted by NCPA last week, and the Energy Commission did, one of the commissioners did speak to the need for gas into the future. I think his number was they foresee 85% of the natural gas plants in California being needed for the foreseeable future, for many years to come.
Yeah.
They also expect them to run a bit less.
Well, and the reason I ask, I mean, we've sort of invested in where we have an opportunity to invest in the natural gas generation that DWR built out at the Roseville Energy Park. and you have to decide whether or not, if they're going to turn around and outlaw it somehow, then it might not be a good investment. But if they're going to recognize that long-term you need natural gas, then it is a good investment. I mean, so I'm just trying to figure out what you think about that subject.
I think those plants are going to be there for a long time. So Roseville Electric currently is in both of those markets, bilateral markets and centralized markets. So we are in the Balancing Authority of Northern California. We're a bilateral market. So we transact day ahead, hour ahead with our bank friends, key ones being Modesto, SMUD, Redding, and WAPA. Being in bank, it also provides access to electricity markets in the Northwest. So Roseville, other bank members, we have transmission from Tracy up into the state of Oregon. So we can, as Dan pointed out, we can move electricity around bank with our partners, and we can ship it up out of state. So we make bilateral trades with counterparties up in the Northwest, in addition to trading with our partners. This has been really good for Roseville. It's allowed us to avoid some significant ISO charges. Dan mentioned the TAC. So our transmission cost is just roughly around $4 a megawatt hour. In the California ISO, it's about $16 a megawatt hour. So, just rough math, we're getting a savings that's pretty substantial, say $12 to $14 million a year by being in bank versus the ISO, just from a transmission perspective. So we're also in centralized markets operated by the California ISO. As some of you may remember, in 2021, we joined the what's known as the Western Energy Imbalance Market, or EIM. It's proven to be very beneficial for us. But one thing we've observed is hour-ahead real-time trading has virtually disappeared. Us and our partners will trade little tiny bits of electricity just so we meet the test to be participating for the next hour in EIM, but more or less those markets are gone.
Why?
Because the market does all that for you. So, for example, if it's say it's a late April or early May day, there's a huge surplus of solar out on the ISO grid. So we would show the EIM market that the REP can be running very high. And during those middle of the day hours, the market will tell the REP, get as low as you can, take this very inexpensive solar. So hence, no need to trade hour ahead. The market is doing that trading. It moves the generation that we have and makes up for it with generation from outside of Roseville, outside of RBA. And likewise, if it's in a pretty warm day, we might position the REP to be less than maximum. It's serving our load, and the ISO might call upon it in the EIM market and tell us to dispatch much higher. So hence, there's no need to trade that little bit extra you can do or less you can do on an hour-ahead basis.
It's almost like trading in the marketplace. I mean, it's like stock. How many people do you have on staff that handle these negotiations?
So that's a really good question. Our power supply team has 8 people. So they're doing these month ahead, mostly month ahead transactions, negotiating long-term power purchase agreements, more of what's known as term trading. And we have our scheduling agent is a company called ACES Power Management. And ACES is handling, they run the 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year real-time desk. And they're trading, they're doing the bilateral trades for the next day, for the next hour. they're setting us up. Does that answer your question? So about 8 people doing all the forward stuff.
He's asking about stuff, yeah.
So one thing to point out is the ISO is looking at this, what's known as the EDAM, the Enhanced Day-Ahead Market. The graphic there just shows you all the entities that are currently participating in the EIM, so the real-time market. And so the ISO is trying to attract all these participants to sign on to participate in this enhanced day-ahead market. So it's under development by the ISO. It's got the potential to really leverage a lot of these EIM benefits by having a more orderly selection of generators across a much bigger footprint. You end up with much more efficient use. So conceivably, the Roseville Energy Park could offer itself day ahead, and it might be the market doesn't need it that next day. Other things can help serve Roseville's load. Likewise,
This would be where AI eventually would come in big play in reviewing costs.
it could. I mean, the ISO prides itself on its optimization engine of
Yep.
this market. It's thought of as being one of the 5 most sophisticated optimization engines in the world.
Interesting.
So it's a very sophisticated market to find the most economic resources
Right.
to meet load. So this is the ISO, the current timeline they have is the market could, the first participants in EDAM could go as soon as 2026. And as we've seen with the EIM market and the real-time trading, hour-ahead trading pretty much disappearing, the expectation is under EDAM, the day-ahead trading starts to go away too, because the market is solving for all of that. So this is just a little overview to give you a sense for our portfolio. So we have about roughly 25% of our assets are in the California ISO. So it's in that centralized market. They're always in that centralized market. Occasionally, we do deliver those assets to Roseville, but given the high transmission costs in the ISO, we do that only when it's really necessary. In Bank, we have about 50%, roughly 50% of our assets, the Roseville Energy Park, Roseville Power Plant 2. We have typically around 65 megawatts we get from WAPA through our long-term base resource contract. And then we have roughly 25% that we access into the Northwest using our transmission. So this portfolio is roughly, it's a little over 400 megawatts. So the thing that we're expecting is continued change, and it's going to impact how we conduct business in the future. If we influence how we operate and invest in new generating resources to serve the community, so I know you had a good question about solar earlier, where we're very actively looking at renewables right now. We remain engaged in a lot of different forums just to make sure that we're properly considering the options ahead of us and which markets we participate in. And we don't move the market, but we do adapt and are prepared to act when necessary to put Roseville in the right place for the future. With that, any other questions?
Any other questions from the commission? Go ahead.
That's concerning, somebody said, well, they're going to control natural gas or cut it off at some point in time as a fuel, but not as a feedstock. Conceivably, you could bring in as much or more natural gas, convert it to hydrogen and carbon, and that's considered green. That's not using natural gas as a fuel. It's a feedstock to make other fuels that are acceptable. So, Lord knows what that's going to lead to in the next 10 years or so.
Yeah,
That
there's
could
a
be
lot
huge.
of investment going on in hydrogen right now. Our partners at NCPA were recently awarded as part of a larger group in California where have been selected. It's called the Arches effort. So it was selected as a state hydrogen hub. So I think there's a lot to be done on that over the next couple decades. But yeah, right now hydrogen is more in the kind of R&D phase. Not many projects are out there yet, but that's a good point on the feedstock.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
One more. I thought this was great. I thank you very much for it. I think it'd be interesting to see the market prices and how they fluctuate during the day, during the different seasons of the year. I mean, I think it'd just be interesting information, and if you could bring that at a future date, I would appreciate it.
I'm sure we can.
Talk about it.
Thank you.
And talk about the
Yeah.
challenges of how you negotiate,
Sure.
you know, around buying and selling as the opportunity.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions for staff from the commissioners? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Seeing no public questions, thank you again for your report, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the report from the Environmental Utilities Assistant Director, Devin Willington, summarizing the monthly status of the environmental utilities activities. Welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Good evening, Commissioners. So we have one update this evening, and it's kind of dovetail on what we were just talking about with natural gas. We're actually going to be talking about the Advanced Clean Fleet regulation that was adopted last spring. Many of you heard that in our rates presentation last year and some of the impacts it will have on us. So in a nutshell, what it does, as of January this year, half of our heavy-duty or half of all state agencies' vehicles need to be zero emissions. And then in 2027, all vehicles will need to be zero emissions. So what we've done over the last year is we've looked at what the biggest impacts to us would be, and that's our heavy-duty fleet. So as of December 31st of this last year, 2023, we have 30 heavy-duty trucks on order. And so what that will do, that will allow us to get another 10 to 15 years out of these vehicles and allow us to save a lot of basically expense on looking at some of the newer technologies. Battery electric trucks, heavy-duty trucks right now that cannot actually perform a full route or a full duty cycle in some of the other industries that we have here, they cost about $1 million. And so the trucks that we just purchased are $550,000. And they're going to be running on renewable natural gas that's produced out at the ERP project at our plant. So we're looking to utilize that for the next 15 years until the technology comes forward that will actually benefit us to run a full day's route and actually get a full duty cycle out of the trucks. And we're looking at things like hydrogen and others, but we hope the next 15 years will help out with that. So anyway, any questions from anybody?
Questions? I'm not seeing any questions. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Not seeing anybody from the public. I want to say thank you for bringing your report.
Absolutely.
Next up on our agenda is the report from the Roseville Utility Exploration Center. This report is being given to us by Braden Mitchell, providing an overview of the Roseville Utility Exploration Center's activities. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much, Chair Webb and Commissioners, for having me here this evening. So I have a report about the kind of the activities from the Utility Exploration Center over the last year. So it's a lot going on, and I will do my best to kind of get through that and highlight some of those fun highlights that we have out of the Utility Exploration Center. For any members that don't know, for any members of the audience, the Utility Exploration Center is an environmental learning center, and we work in partnership with both Environmental Utilities and Roseville Electric Utility to provide education outreach into our community. We've been doing so since 2008, and we're actually co-located out in the community at the Martha Riley Library location where our center is. So tonight, speaking of the center, I want to give an overview, kind of an update of our center exhibit update project. So I'll kind of show you where we are with that and sneak peek. We're almost there. So I'll show you some images of where we're at with our exhibit project. I'll walk you through our school programming, which is kindergarten through 12th grade. It's kind of the bread and butter of what we do, so I'll give you some highlights over the last year from those programs. Walk you through our workshops and some of the adult outreach that we do, and then wrap up tonight with some of our fun events like Earth Night and, of course, our Big Truck Summer event, which is very popular. So to dive in, our exhibit project, this is one that we've been working on for a few years now, but going from our last update last January, we found a fabricator, and in April, we were able to give a notice to proceed to Moe Inc. To create the exhibits, actually build the exhibits from all the amazing designs that we had. So working with them forward from April, we turned all those wonderful designs into construction drawings. We made some final kind of tweaks and edits on those. And then we also kind of pushed Moe Inc. to come up with some additional activities within those original drawings and original designs. So they identified 2 main locations. One of those was in our garbage truck exhibit, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And the other was in our electric grid game for some pretty significant improvements, which I'm really excited about. So then as we move forward, this last October, we were able to go out to Moe's shop and see those exhibits in progress and, make sure they were coming along with everything. And just at the beginning of this month, I went out for kind of my final visit out there before shipping all these exhibits out to us to make sure that their build quality was up to snuff and that they were maintaining their timeline and their schedule. So now I'd like to walk through, some of those exhibits, show you some of that process photography, and then, what those prototypes look like. So to start with, our exhibit design, I'm excited about moving that kind of main entrance, if you will, for the Utility Exploration Center a little further out, a little more prominent in the lobby. So you can see that large kind of walk-through pipe, that walk-through tunnel, simulating underground utilities. In the next slide, we have what that actually looks like in process of being built. So you can see, it's all made out of, nice plywood and everything that will be all covered over, and it'll look like a utility pipe that you're actually walking through. It also brings the name Utility Exploration Center front and center into that lobby space. Right now, it's kind of tucked up behind some of those pillars in there. So that's one of those. The next one is, as people walk into the space, there's a large kind of welcome map. And this welcome map, there's 2 stations where folks can interact. There's little touchscreens on the side. They can select utilities, and the projector overhead will show how those utilities work and operate throughout the city. It's not actual locations, of course. It's a little stylized to show that, but it kind of gives you that sense of there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So in the next image, you'll see what one of those screens might look like. They can select individual utilities, or they can select a button that says all utilities, and you get just that really great grid structure of all those utilities and how they work together to keep Roseville moving. So I'm looking forward to this as a great way of kind of introducing these concepts into the folks, the general public, and school groups that come in. In our waste services section, we have an updated trash pile, so a lot smaller than the one that currently exists in our space, but we still maintained a crawl-through tunnel, and we were able to put some other interactives there with that. And then, of course, in the background, that is a garbage truck cab. That is a cab off of one of the retired garbage trucks that we have here in the city that we were able to work with Fleet on cutting the front end off of and repurposing for our exhibits. So move forward into this next one that shows what that trash pile is going to look like. You can see they're doing a great job of kind of showcasing a lot of items and be a really cool kind of hide and seek items for our folks as they come in. And then I talked about that tunnel going through on the right side of the screen. That's me actually peeking up inside of a dome, kind of a acrylic dome that's like an old washing machine top. So I'm really excited for the trash pile. I'll be honest, I'm excited for all the exhibits. So that's the waste services section. With that garbage truck, there's some shots from our Fleet team out there. They've been working diligently on cutting that cab apart and also building the structure that'll house that cab in our space. The casters are just temporary. That'll allow us to get into that space. And then we have a permanent structure that'll be bolted down to the floor, so it'll be nice and stable. So this is one of those improvements that we worked with MOE and their team. And we're going to be able to get our folks into that cab. There's going to be a staircase that allows folks to climb up, sit in the driver's seat of that cab. There's interactive buttons that will show little videos where a side loader will pick up a residential can, and you'll see that video like you're looking in a side view mirror dump into the back of the truck. We got video footage of going out to the material recovery facility and dumping that full load out onto, backing in and dumping that full load out onto the tipping floor. So these are just some of those interactive components that we're able to work with MOE and their team to improve on this already amazing display for us. So that's our garbage truck that's coming along. Of course, water. There's a lot of great stories to share in water. One of the ones right there front and center is the ASR wells. So that exhibit, folks can turn that crank right there on the front back and forth and get some fun little factoids of water flowing up or down on that computer screen, either out of or into our ASR wells. And then in the back, you can see kind of a curved piece that's going to simulate a wastewater section, which is kind of behind that, talking about our wastewater utility and the work that they do to then clean the water after everybody uses it here in Roseville. So the next slide will show what those look like in process. So again, on the left side, that's that kind of large wellhead of the ASR wells with that big crank right there on the front. Then you can see the computer screen in there. And then on the right side is a simulation of those backlit panels that'll curve. It'll be even larger than those that'll curve up and over to simulate that pipe. So one other section, there's many other sections, but again, just had to grab a few for those highlights. But one other section is our electric section here in the corner of the exhibits. And what I'm really looking forward to in this piece is what we're calling our Powering Roseville Interactive. And so it's going to be talking all about the grid and the amazing work that our electric department does to maintain that grid and maintain electricity and reliability here in the city of Roseville. So on the next slide, you'll see some prototypes that we've been working through. And this was another one of those areas that we pushed on with MOE to get to a really good place to try to talk about not only that grid reliability, but just all the amazing things that go on behind the scenes of making those switches and those changes to maintain power, and if we do have an outage, to keep that outage as short as possible. So on the left side of the screen, you can see that large structure. It's huge, and it'll definitely dominate that side of the exhibits. On the right side is the prototype for, there's switches, those little black knobs or switches all over that screen. You can turn those switches and the different power lines will light up and simulate like you're powering up the whole city. That'll also have a gamification side of it with a touch screen. So you can hit start and it'll walk you through, uh-oh, there was an outage. There was a Mylar balloon that hit a power line and these sections are now out. Help us get that power back on and maintain power in the city. And you can work through and turn those switches. So I was really excited with the ideas that they brought to the table with how to bring this idea to life. So I'm looking forward to, like I said, everything, but this one in particular. So that's a highlight of some of those exhibits. There's a lot more that's going on. I could probably spend the next few hours just regaling you with amazing stories from that, but I won't. So from here, what does it look like? We are in the end of January, so shipping should start from MOE's fabrication site at the end of this month, so next week. Demo, we're looking to start in the next week and a half. Install, as long as everything goes well with demo and there's no surprises there, install should start early February, and that'll last February through at least the first half of March. And then once everything is installed and gone through, then we will look to reopen, hopefully the second half, if not the end of March, back to the public, back to tours, and that's when you guys will all get invites from me to come out and see our new exhibits. So that's kind of the snapshot of where things are. It's been a 2-year project for me, and I'm looking forward to being there with all those new exhibits, and hopefully I'll see you guys out there. Moving into our school programming, of course, K-5 as kindergarten through 5th grade programs has been a lot of what we do, since we were created, really. We're still maintaining those programs. We're still offering tours of the center. Not at the moment, again, because we're temporarily closed, but we still offer tours of the center when we'll reopen. We are now doing in-class tours for 2nd and 4th grade. We provide traveling trunks, which is a whole suitcase full of materials that teachers can check out for 6 weeks for 4th and 5th grade. We have free lesson plans and materials that teachers can receive as well. You can see that last year we served just over, well, almost about 5,500 students. That's pretty par for the course for us. Of course, a little dip in those COVID years. And then this year so far, because we're only halfway through the school year, we're at about 2,800, and projecting out, we're looking at being right around that 5,500 total students served through those K-5 programs. You can see next here on this graph, again, just kind of shows that stability. There's that dip in those COVID years I was mentioning. And of course, FY23-24 is still just half of that year. We only have maybe a handful, less than 10 tour dates yet available for the remainder of this school year. We're still getting in those requests daily. So those should be probably pretty much picked up in the next few weeks. So we're excited to be at capacity for that. We're still getting great comments back from a lot of our teachers. There's just a couple up there, which obviously makes me feel really good about the team that I'm putting out there to present these programs, but also tells me that we're achieving one of our best advertising techniques, which is word of mouth. So these teachers are not only enjoying these programs, but they're able to share word with their fellow teachers, and we're getting even more signups for that. So last year, we started piloting middle school. So this is a brand new set of programming for us, worked with a contractor to develop that. The second half of the year, January, February, and March, we piloted our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade programs with select teachers out at Chilton Middle School. These programs are, of course, aligned with NGSS. That's the Next Generation Science Standards. They are aligned with our utility messaging and, of course, aligned with the current curriculum that is adopted by our Roseville City Schools. We are now fully rolled out that program. We learned a lot out of that pilot, and this year we were able to reach every 6th, 7th, and 8th grade student at Chilton Middle School, kind of as a thank you to those teachers that put in additional work through that pilot program. After this year, we're going to look to expand that to the remainder of our middle schools here in the city of Roseville. So just really briefly with 6th grade, our focus is really on water conservation. And we bring kids out to the parks directly behind their schools, get them out of the classroom, right? Go do some exploration outside. This is in the springtime, so they get to explore those parks, see that water quality, and also look at some of those water conservation messages or kind of water conservation techniques that we have out there in those parks and measure all those. And you can see from the pictures that they're just having a great time. I don't think it's just because they got out of the classroom. I do think it's because of some of that program they're participating in as well. In 7th grade, we really focused on SB 1383, looking at food waste and what that does in the landfill versus in composting. We looked at gases produced, we looked at space in landfills, and worked with those students to, really understand why there's that push to get that organic waste and material out of those landfills and into better resources into composting. And in 8th grade, we focused on energy. So we looked at all the different energy sources and did a deep dive into solar and really took a look at, is solar the answer? Hint, no, not the answer. But we did that through some fun exploration of building solar boats. And we set up a little racetrack there, little water troughs, and we had the students work in teams of 2 or 3 to build those solar boats. We provided the materials. They built the boats, their own designs, and then they raced them down those pathways. The teachers got involved as well, and they wanted to build boats that beat all of their student boats, which was excellent as far as I was concerned. So we had a lot of fun. The students also did an energy audit of their campus and looked for ways that they could, provide saving energy on their school campus as well. So we're really happy with our middle school programming and look forward to expanding that out as staffing and availability allows. In the high school, this is another new area for us. Last time I was here, I talked about our high school field day program. That is still going strong. We're offering 2 field day programs a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. Those focus on careers within our utility departments and trying to encourage or spark an interest with our local high school students. We invite out about 40 students from our local high schools for each of those utility field days. And we run them through the gamut of everything that they get to do here in the Roseville utilities. I've been starting to share the word about our field day, and we've had a little bit of interest in getting calls. I've been presenting at CASA, and CWEA is coming up this year to talk about those education programs, and I've been meeting with a few utilities across the state. I see this as a huge win because if we're out there promoting utilities here in Roseville, that's great. But if everyone across the state of California is promoting utilities as a very viable and lucrative career, then that's even better. And we're going to be able to get a good amount of folks come out and apply for those jobs. So I'm more than happy to share everything that we do and work with those other utilities to promote programs with them as well. So some nice pictures from our last field day, which was in October. Of course, with Roseville Electric Utility, we brought them out into the pole yard. We talked about a lot of the safety requirements around the work that the linemen do on a day-to-day basis. And we showed the kids, with supervision, of course, how some of the different equipment there works and makes the job a little bit easier and a little bit safer for our utility linemen. We worked with our environment utilities engineers to showcase that engineering pathway and what that job might look like. Our engineers put together a task of trying to increase the capacity of one of our wastewater treatment plants. They gave them a budget, they gave them staff time allocated and a few options, and then the students had to work on, okay, how can we build something to increase our capacity, go from, I don't remember the exact numbers, but maybe 16 to 30 MGDs. So they worked out, what they could put together and stay under budget to do that. So I thought that was a pretty fun project our engineering team put together. With our wastewater collections team, brought them out, showed them some of the cool trucks and toys that they work with out at wastewater collections. The top two pictures there, I had to put both of them up because that was one of the highlights from all of our high school students, is getting to sit in an excavator and just with supervision, of course, be able to operate that excavator, take a couple swipes of dirt, and just get behind those controls. We also brought out our camera rig and talked about how we can check out those lines and make sure that there's no leaks, there's no intrusions and stuff like that, and maintain that system. We also brought our kids to the lab and had our lab folks talk about the work that they do to maintain our wastewater treatment processes. We brought them into the water department, simulated a leak, and had them actually put one of those big clamps on the pipe to stop that leak. And then, of course, reminded of, okay, you're doing this, but you're actually down in a hole while you're doing that. You're not up here on nice solid ground. So it was kind of a cool way of showcasing that. And then it just worked out great. That upper right corner picture, that was actually one of our electric interns that was there, happened to be working during that field day, and he was able to talk directly to his fellow high school students about a high school internship that he was participating in, which then just kind of helped promote that high school internship program as well. We ask before and after questions, survey all of the students that come through. You can see that beforehand we said, hey, have you ever even considered a career in utilities before today? And most kids said, yeah, or maybe is really code for, yeah, no, I've never really thought about it. So, maybe 44% said, yeah, I've thought about that, I've considered that. We asked them afterwards and we said, okay, now that you've been to field day, what do you think? Would you consider a career in utilities? I see two really big wins here. One is that the kids actually made a decision, so that maybe column went down considerably. And that's okay if it's no's or yeses, but the fact they made a decision one way or the other, that's a big one. And then two, that the yes column actually improved. So we can show 65% of the students that came out said, yeah, you know what, this was great, and I'm now going to look at utilities as a potential career for me. So we're really happy with that, and like I said, getting a lot of traction with some of our fellow departments across the state. So that was our group right there from our last field day, and I'll just say that you might be looking at some of the future of Roseville utility workers right there in that picture. So up next, some of the other programs. So field day is a great one as a way to dip our toes into high school programming. Since then, we've started to work closely with some of our AP Environmental Science high school teachers to provide tours out at the Roseville Energy Park and at Pleasant Grove Wastewater Treatment Plant. And that's a way for the students to take that the learning that they're doing in the classroom and see real-world applications of what that means out there in the utilities, out there in the real world. So teachers are loving that ability, especially out there at our West Park High School. They can literally just walk right across the way to get to those tours. So it's a nice connection for us. And then the other one is one that we're currently working on, and that is, again, out at West Park. They are looking to develop a career and technical education pathway specifically for utility careers. So that was a grant funding that they went for, the high school department or division went for, and they were approved for grant funding. We've been working with them to help develop this program, and their goal is to implement this fully next school year. And so it's the energy and environmental utilities, energy and environment and utilities pathway. And I think this is going to be kind of the next puzzle piece into really promoting those careers and developing quality candidates for our utilities here in Roseville.
Would you work with, like, say, Sierra College and helping develop a two-year program, say, for a...
Yeah, that's my next kind of goal and look. Our high school counterparts are also looking at that as well. And so I think this was just kind of our baby step going from field day. They saw that need, they saw that kind of coordination with utilities. So now we'll get that into the high schools, and then we'll work towards community college and local colleges to kind of bolster and develop that as well. But yeah, 100%. Cool. All right. So that's a lot of, what we do is really that education for kindergarten through 12th grade. But we don't leave our ratepayers, our residents out, the general public. So we do have workshops that we offer. Those cover water conservation, energy conservation, organic waste. We have a lot of great gardening workshops, stuff like that. Those are maintaining very steady. We see around 400 to 600 people a year, depending on the year, depending on those programs. You can see the graph at the bottom. Again, that's just half of FY 23-24. We're at about 270, 280 participants so far in those programs. Projecting out, I'm expecting that to be, again, right around that 500 or so mark, as long as we can fill all those programs, which so far we've been able to do. And then, of course, community events. So for some of you that may have been around Roseville for a little while, we used to do a Celebrate the Earth Festival many years ago. That festival was a lot of fun, but it got pretty large, and we started losing that main messaging of conservation and utilities through that festival. So we stepped back a little bit. We took a look at what our goals are, what we really wanted to be able to do. We reallocated some of that time that went into that one event and turned it into 4 or 5 different events throughout the year. But we realized we really need to do something for Earth Day. So last year we developed what we call Earth Night in conjunction with our utilities. And we launched that in April of 23. We worked with both EU and Roseville Electric Utility and out at our Wood Creek Golf Course. So for that one, on that next slide, you can see that we took our good music, good food, games and activities, and our utilities. We put them all in one place. It was a fun Thursday evening, night out. We had around 500 total people that showed up for that event. And it was just a great way of building that community goodwill for our utility departments. Great conversations to be had, not only about the music and the food, but of course about utilities and rebates and whatever else kind of came up, and do it in a fun and kind of family environment. So we had a great time. Like I said, we had about 500 total people that came to that one, and so we're looking to do this again this year and into the next years as well. And then, of course, I have to do it. We have this great event. It's called Big Truck Summer. This is our 11th Big Truck Summer that we've had. And you can tell by the excitement on this kid's face right here that he had a great time this last summer at our Big Truck Summer. So I'll walk through just some of those pictures. We started off with our electric utility. Again, they were able to show the crowds the amazing work they do, how they can do that day in and day out, maintain our grid, maintain our reliability, and do so safely. Might have some future electric line workers there in the making. So they were first up on the docket. Next, we brought up our water department. They had this nice kind of leak simulation thing where they could show their Vector truck digging down to that leak, be able to turn that off, and then gave the kids an opportunity to get in behind the seat of all their different machines, excavators, everything else. Of course, bringing out a nice big pile of sand was always a big hit with kids, but then walking through, what those pipes look like and how they maintain that. For the third week, we had our solid waste division who did a great job of kind of a big truck parade of all the different garbage trucks that we have here in the city. And kids, I got to tell you, if you don't know, kids love garbage trucks. They see them every week coming around their neighborhood, and they absolutely love them. So we got some great shots of kids just enjoying themselves, getting a feel for what that view is of sitting up there behind the wheel of their favorite garbage truck. And then to conclude the events this year, we had our wastewater department come out. They set up, again, a whole simulation of what those underground waste pipes look like, and we're able to show how they can clean and maintain those pipes with their CCTV rigs and with their Vector truck, and got the kids just really excited about wastewater and checking out the sewer and the work that these folks do. So we had a great time, and the numbers are where they've been for the last few years at least. We had just under 1,200 total people come out for Electric Day, just over 1,000 for our Water Day. Kids love garbage trucks. We had about 1,500 total come out for our Waste Services Day, and about 800 people come out to see our wastewater utility. So total attendance around 4,500 people, and we just had a blast, and we hope our public did as well. And looks on their faces, it says they did. So with that, that concludes everything that I have. There's a lot more, of course, that goes on. I just wanted to kind of give you some highlights over the past year from the Utility Exploration Center. If anybody has any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to do my best to answer them for you.
Good job.
Oh,
Excellent.
just a quick comment. I think what you're doing is absolutely outstanding. And it's not just that I wish you could reach even a bigger market, particularly the high school kids. It's not just a career in utilities. There's half a dozen different engineering careers. When Commissioner Lacey and I toured the one of the plants, and we asked that engineer, "Where'd you learn how to do that?" "In the Navy." "Really?" I mean, why'd we spend billions of dollars on higher education in California? Anyway. And then the other thing I could see is, there's a segue into commodities marketing. How is electricity? How does it get here? How's it bought and sold? I think a fun exhibit at the you mentioned the Mylar Blues. I remember when the Mylar hit the years ago hit the power station near my house. But I think that'd be a fun exhibit to show what happens when a Mylar balloon actually touches one of those transformers. But again, I'm just blown away. I'm so impressed with what you do, and very grateful that you do it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll definitely relay that to my team. They work really hard. They take a lot of pride in what they do and the services that we provide, the educational services that we provide to the community. And yes, I would love to be able to reach even more. You have limited resources, limited staffing, but yeah, as much as I can reach out and talk about careers in general, I think that's really one of those kind of pieces to keep us moving into the future.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come forward and address the commission on this item? Well, thank you for your presentation, Braden. Next on the agenda is board member, commissioner, staff reports. Are there any reports from staff? Are there any comments or questions or reports from the commissioners?
Well, the only thing I noticed was one of the newspapers up the hill was saying Roseville residents will be socked with a 20% rate increase. That's not true. And I just wondered, does our public information officer contact these, reporters and say, hey, you got it wrong? It's over, a number of years.
Yes, we do have an active PIO and communication plan. So it is 9% in June if approved, and then
Right.
9% again in December, as well as keeping the 8% temporary charge that we were hoping to get rid of if the gas market corrected, which it didn't. So
Yeah.
if you add it all up, it does, it does compound. It is, 9 and 9, and you compound it, it is getting close to 20. If you add the 8, it's more. So, but if you look at other utilities across California, they're all facing the same thing.
Yeah, and put it in perspective, I mean, I've been here 23 years. It's the first time we got a rate increase. I mean,
Yeah, I
come on.
believe there were 7 years of 0% from
Yeah.
2014 to 21, and you might ask, well, why don't you just do incremental? It's nice to do incremental things. Like, I wish the government would do incremental in general, so business and people can respond. The thing is, our business model is we do have reserves that we maintain, and we have metrics that we want to maintain, but we don't charge more than we need to charge to cover our costs. So we're nonprofit. So in those years when natural gas was very affordable and the energy market was nice and cheap, everyone did well, and we could keep rates pretty stable. But now it's not doing that, and so now we have to make some corrections. So,
If you look into natural gas costs over the years, the average increase really has not been much at all. Natural gas was cheap years ago, and there weren't many price increases that came with it. It was very steady, went down, up, down. Now it's going up a bit, but overall, if you looked at, inflation or producer price index, it compared with what it was 40 years ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago it was around $3, and now it's over $6, and at times it's $9. So it's definitely, but it's, the United States has a lot of natural gas.
Yeah.
It's just we have to be willing to get it out of the ground and alleviate the supply-demand issue.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Does anyone have any items they'd like to suggest for future meetings? Not seeing any requests for agenda items. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
No? And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned.